Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show. It's Thursday, the 25th of July, 2019, coming up on 6 o'clock Eastern Time. You know, every once in a while, you get a stretch of weather where things are relatively tranquil. And for the most part, that's where we are at the moment, certainly in the eastern half of the United States, or maybe even a bit more than the eastern half of the United States. It's quiet for this time of the year. Hardly any pop-up shower and thunderstorms to deal with, Florida being the exception. And, you know, that really is about it. I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here for the rest of the week and weekend and into the very first part of next week. Yes, the dry air is going to move out. We're going to see the humidity levels come up throughout much of the east. But it's not going to get too unreasonable, I think. Sunday and Monday will probably be the two hottest days. And this time around, to me, it looks like the temperatures are going to be maybe getting back to the low 90s on Monday would be about the hottest, for my region anyway. The setup this time around is a bit different than what it was last weekend. Instead of having a west to northwest wind, with a bit of a pressure gradient, and that always heats things up around here. We're going to have more of a west to southwest wind, and it's not going to be as strong a push. So I think that's going to make a difference in terms of the temperatures. And with regards to getting there, we have a bit of an onshore flow setting up for Saturday. It's very light, but it's enough to take the temperatures down a notch. And meanwhile, Friday is just going to be a repeat performance of today because the humidity is going to be on the low side. Look at the, let's start off tonight. I imagine we're probably not going to have many folks on, so I can't envision this live stream going for too long. But we do have in the east, a lot of fair weather clouds showing up. And this is because of the fact that the trough in the east is still kind of hanging around. Part of it has moved out to the east. Part of it is kind of lagging back down into the Tennessee Valley. And then, of course, you've got all this subtropical moisture from the Gulf of Mexico running east-northeast across Florida, out off the southeast coast, and continuing out into the open waters of the Atlantic. So the subtropical moisture there, it doesn't look, we were talking yesterday and the day before about a little low that was going to develop, that the conditions were not all that favorable for any kind of development here, and it looks to be the case that this is not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen of consequence. And we are seeing across southern Canada, right in the middle of the loop, there's an arc of clouds that runs down into the northern plains with some showers and storms. Now, that's going to go well to the north, and it pretty much sets up the weather in the east for Friday and beyond. And then you have some scattered shower and thunderstorm activity still going on in the southwest, where we still have some flood watches up in a few places, but nothing much is coming of that. No important cold front is going to be really coming through until the middle part of next week. So we've got time here before the next frontal system moves by and starts to change things. The Storm Prediction Center doesn't have a whole lot with regards to risk tonight. Slight risk up in eastern North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota. And then you've got a marginal risk around that. But other than that, there really isn't too much happening. You have a small area of marginal risk in southeast Florida, and then a general area of thunderstorms running from the southwest northeastward up into the plains. Otherwise, look across the Ohio Valley, the northern mid-Atlantic states southward to almost to the Georgia-Florida state line, and back across Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and Texas. No thunderstorms at all. That is unusual for the month of July. Not that there can't be days where you don't have any thunderstorms, but to see such a large geographic area showing no thunderstorm activity being forecast really goes to the scope of this dry air that has moved on in. So while we're in this dry period, needless to say that the rainfalls in the next 7 days aren't going to amount to too much in most places. The exception being Florida, which, while this frontal boundary lies across the Gulf and across Florida and off the southeast coast, there will be downpours and thunderstorms, and you can see that WPC has what looks like 3 to 5 inches up and down pretty much the entire state. Otherwise, as far as the rest of the U.S. is concerned, you're seeing some pockets of storms of rain amounts running up to an inch to an inch and a half up and down along the coastal plain from southern New England down into North Carolina. I think much of that is going to be for the front that comes through for the middle part of next week. There really isn't a whole lot that is happening at the moment. We have some rainfall amounts being indicated across the upper Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, and then through the Great Lakes, but nothing substantial. I mean, nothing too crazy. There are some 2-inch plus amounts. Again, this will be with the next frontal boundary. The Tennessee Valley, kind of lacking. A lot of the Gulf states lacking in activity. The area in southern Louisiana, out into the western Gulf, and that's part of that moisture that's left back there. And then you have the Southwest, where you've got these pockets of 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half, and maybe some 2-inch amounts in parts of Colorado and New Mexico. So from the standpoint of what could happen this time of year, it is reasonably tame, and with watches and warnings, it's reasonably tame. I have to say, we come on, we do this show every night, so we do it on nights when there isn't much weather going on, and we do it on nights where the weather is crazy. So we're not just storm focused, and we're not just focused on when activity is going on, but even on days when it's calm, there are things, there's less to talk about, but there are always things to talk about. Watches and warnings, not very much at all. You still have flood watches in parts of Nevada and in parts of Southern California, east of the Sierra Nevadas. And on the other side of that, you've got some heat advisories and excessive heat watches up. And that's it. It's summer. It's July. The pattern is tranquil. We're happy. And all is good. So we're going to take a look at the specifics with regards to today. And, it's all about the dew point, in my view. When you have an air mass like this, you take a look at those dew points and you're like, wow, I wish we could keep this all year round. These are current temperature dew points across New Jersey and Long Island and down into southeastern New York and Connecticut. You're looking at temperatures in the upper 70s and lower 80s, maybe a few places pushing up to about 83 or 4 on the high end, but it's those dew points in blue that we love to see in the 50s. Would that we could keep that all year round. Now, Atlantic City's got a bit of an exception here. They're 79 with a dew point of 70, but they actually had some pop-up thunderstorms. I'm going to overlay let's overlay the radar and see what's left. There were some pop-up storms that formed in the southernmost counties of New Jersey today, and they are now gone. And there are some pop-ups in well up into upstate New York when you go north of Albany, up the Northway into the Adirondacks. Now, there's still some cold pockets, a weak trough that is still hovering in the east. And I think that, that's the reason why we had those pop-ups show up in parts of central and western Pennsylvania yesterday. Not seeing any of that today. Today it was a couple of pop-ups. This was between 3 and 5 o'clock. They didn't even last that long. They came and went very quickly. And now, of course, it's all done. Look at the dew points down into North Virginia, North Carolina, 50s and low 60s, even down into South Carolina. We're seeing these dew points. Charleston is 86 with a dew point of 59. I mean, that's just nuts for this time of year. That is certainly comfortable. Augusta is 90 with a dew point of 57, so the relative humidity there is all of 30, a whopping 34%. Atlanta, what a delightful summer day in Atlanta, where if the numbers will pop back up. Atlanta is 84 with a dew point of 54 and a humidity of 35%. That's unheard of in July. And 2 days in a row of it, no less. And even down along the Gulf Coast, you got some spots not that bad. 91, 61 temperature dew point, that's pretty good. They're not even showing a heat index on some of these obs. This is 89, 63. Let's look at Pensacola. Pensacola is 88, 68 with a heat index of 91. I mean, that really isn't not too shabby. New Orleans got to 90 right now, but their dew point is 63. So 90 temperature and a heat index of 91. Meanwhile, just to take a quick look at what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico, you still have some kind of very weak low here. Just looking at the wind barbs that are showing up south of the Louisiana coast, but there's hardly any weather with it. The radar echoes that are being indicated are really sorely lacking. You've got all this really is a stretched out east-west frontal boundary, and we're not going to have much of anything coming out of this. And meanwhile, just to go further north and give everybody some equal time, running up into parts of Tennessee and northern Mississippi, low 80s, dew points in the upper 50s. Let's head up further north into Illinois and Indiana. We're looking at the same low 80s with dew points in the 50s, and through Michigan and back over. Now you're starting to see some of the dew points come up ahead of that system that's moving up into the upper Midwest. You got some dew points up into the 60s in parts of Wisconsin, but it's actually drier as you go south and west and east, and even south and west than it is up that way. You're seeing dew points coming up in parts of Missouri as well. So that's probably where the line is. The Mississippi River is probably where you could draw the line as far as where the warm air and the cold air. I'm sorry, the warm air and the dry warm air and the more humid air. That's where I think the line is. And the other thing I'm going to try to find out. When you look on the loop, if you look around the Great Lakes, there is a haze there. So I wonder if that's smoke from fires up in Ontario again. There's just a little bit of a haze there in the air. And we've seen that happen from time to time over the last couple of months, where we've gotten into these little, rounds of haziness because of wildfires coming out of Canada. So I'm going to do a little digging around as far as that is concerned. So where are we going? Well, I think it's all going to be now. It's pretty well known what we're going to have weather-wise going through the weekend and into early next week. So after that, we still have this jet stream in Canada that just sort of vacillates back and forth, and when it pulls up, it gets warm to borderline hot. When it drops southward, it gets cool again, and we've got another trough coming into the east for the middle part of next week. It looks to me like it's a little less impressive than what we just had, but this run, there's some northern energy here in southeastern Canada might amplify that trough a little bit. So I'm thinking that maybe for Wednesday, we could have a setup for some strong thunderstorms here. I want to see what kind of daytime heating we get out of it. But the next trough, once again, just like the last one, if we run back, you can see it here. This one that came through for Monday, that brought Monday severe weather, was much more amplified. And then it drops into the east, just kind of hangs around, disappears as we go into the weekend, and then only to have the next one come in for the middle part of next week. So this one looks a little less amped, but it might be amped enough where we still could have some severe weather issues. And then going forward, and I don't have enough of the new GFS run to really get into it. The last run of the GFS was not really overly amped at all with the trough in the east for the middle of next week, but it's kind of ebbs and flows with this. But here comes another one. As we head now, we're into August 4th, 5th. It just seems like it's one after another. And actually, this is a very, this would be a couple of cold fronts with some decent shots of dry and I would say somewhat cool air coming into the east. If this upper air evolves, that's a very, very strong jet stream pattern across the U.S. for the first 10 days of August. it would certainly argue that you could have several cool air masses coming down out of Canada, and that whatever hot days or very warm days will be confined to days ahead of those cold fronts. So I don't know if this is going to verify. Just I want to take a quick look. I didn't look today at the European model, which doesn't take us out far enough, but it does sort of have the same idea. It is not nearly as amped with the trough for the middle of next week, but there is some troughing there coming into the east. And then there's another one. This is at day 10, which is August 4th. There's another one getting ready to drop down out of Canada, and the ridge is going out over into the west and pumping up into southwestern Canada. So, I mean, it kind of looks like it wants to have this sort of amplified pattern going into the month of August. And by the way, with the jet stream pattern that I just showed you, you can, it's not conducive for tropical storms to come up the East Coast. Your westerly winds are too far south and too strong, so that if you were to get anything to develop, it would be, quickly taken out to the northeast, out over the open waters of the Atlantic. And we'll show you the tropics that, at least for now, there's no danger of that happening anytime soon. But as we watch the surface map on this model very quickly, so there's a weak front that approaches on Sunday night that kind of falls apart as it reaches the coast. It produces maybe some scattered storms in New England Sunday night. It does turn the isobars here a little bit more westerly on Monday, so I think that allows for temperatures to rise a bit and head up into the 90s, the lower 90s, I'm thinking. And here's another high that's coming down near Lake Winnipeg, dropping down into Minnesota, and another dry air mass into the upper Midwest. Again, if the trough isn't as deep, this high is going to have less impact than what we are seeing now. But your front is going to be approaching us for later Wednesday and Wednesday night, and then we've got some drier air for the second half of next week, as a nice little high comes down into Wisconsin and pushes eastward. And even here, there's an implication with the upper trough. I'll pull that up. If the upper trough is amplified on this run, it wasn't amplified on the prior run, nor was it amplified on the GFS. If we have something like this, then yeah, I think you're probably going to have another one of these pushes of dry air heading all the way down into the southeastern part of the U.S. But that remains to be seen. I think the GFS might be a little overzealous with having this amped look here for the middle part of next week. So that really is the only thing that we have in terms of watching going forward, is whether we're going to wind up with another round of potential severe weather along about Wednesday of next week. Until then, it is a smooth sail for Friday, for Saturday, for Sunday, for Monday and Tuesday. The only issues that we're dealing with is the fact that the humidity levels will be coming up starting on Saturday and getting to uncomfortable for Sunday, Monday into Tuesday. And then the temperatures will join starting Sunday and lasting into Tuesday, that will have temperatures topping out. I would say Sunday and Tuesday it'll be mostly upper 80s to around 90, and Monday might be the day where you could see a few places push the numbers up to about 92, 93, or maybe even 94. There's your Gulf moisture that's still sitting there. It's just kind of stretched out from Texas east-northeastward across Florida. The wide tropical satellite view really not showing very much. Actually, what it is showing is that you see that haziness that's out in the Atlantic approaching the Leeward Islands. Looks like there's some Saharan dust in that batch moving westward with that tropical wave. And then you've got some weather down along the intertropical convergence zone. It looks like a little more, another round of African dust coming off the coast of Africa, and another tropical wave moving out. But nothing here that shows development anytime soon. Look at the clouds in the Caribbean. You see them moving in two different directions. Lower clouds moving from east to west. Higher clouds kind of getting blown off from west to east. So that's your strong wind shear that continues across the Caribbean. That's there a lot of the time, so there's nothing all that unusual with regards to that. And the rest of the Atlantic is just kind of quiet and in late July mode. So I think that pretty well sums up the weather for tonight. Not a whole lot happening, but you know what? That's a good thing. Sometimes it's very good to not have much happening. I certainly has made me a bit of a happy camper. It allows me to just take a little bit of a breather. You know, there's going to be those days when these hurricanes are running around where I'm going to be doing stuff nonstop. So I really kind of welcome these little stretches where things are okay. Steve LaPointe, thank you for hitting Super Chat. You guys have been very generous this month, and I really appreciate it. It's gotten me a lot of cigars and a few fishing lures. Thank you so much. I definitely do appreciate that you guys do that. And, Chuck Cardillo, I am so jealous because where you are, up in the Catskills, you get these nights this time of year with temperatures down in the 40s. That is wonderful. Hi to Joe Gaffney, Erica Baker, who's been doing some very good weather analysis and posting it up on my weather page on Facebook from time to time. Hey, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea for most of you that are on here on a daily basis who are, rather familiar with these weather maps. Give it a whirl on your own with what you think might happen. It's challenging, to say the least. I have not seen the fires in Siberia and the Arctic, Chuck Cardillo, but maybe you're the answer to the question that I have, which is, the haze. Mark G, same thing, hazy. You could see it on the, you saw it on the satellite loop before, that kind of hazy look over the Great Lakes. So it definitely shows up. What, guys, everybody's talking in their ages today for whatever reason. Okay, I'm 60, so, it's all a good thing. It's only a number. Let's see. Snowy was on earlier. Nice to see you here. James NASCAR, Joe Gaffney, I saw you on board. Chris Alley, all good. Quiet times are to be enjoyed. Still a little early, by the way. It's July 25th. We are not, believe it or not, even though activity does tend to pick up a little bit toward the end of July. In a lot of years, you don't have any tropical storm activity in the last 10 days of July. And we're going to be going into August, so look for things to start revving up with respect to tropical cyclone activity. You know what? There is one thing we can look at, and then I'm going to wrap it up because it is in the news today. The heat wave in Europe. And that heat wave is going to break, okay? But let me just bring up, let me bring the maps up again really fast. Okay, here we go. So here's what the upper air looks like in Europe. You've got this big upper high sitting in northern Italy. Huge ridge built all the way up into Norway and Sweden, and you've got a deep upper low that's east of Ireland, and that is, you got this, that really just allows the areas that are under the ridge and north and west of where that upper high is to really heat up considerably. And here we have it for today. Now we do have that trough in the Atlantic does swing in, so this should put an end to the extreme heat. And that upper high moves northward over Norway and Sweden, and then heads northwestward toward Greenland. So that is probably, perhaps, the beginnings going down the road. We were talking about the pattern, the jet stream getting a bit more amplified later next week and beyond, particularly as we get into August. It could be because we have blockiness developing up across the northern latitudes. But this heat wave is going to come to an end as we start to get more troughing in the long haul. And in fact, by the time we get to next Wednesday, you got a pretty deep trough there over Norway and Sweden. and the ridge is now up more toward Greenland. So the hottest weather may be done very soon. And just take a look at these temperatures. We'll look at the shaded temperatures here from the GFS. This was the forecast for today, which was for temperatures up around. Now, I can only go to noon time, so we'll just have to add at least several degrees, but certainly high. Paris got to 107 today, or 108, and the numbers at noon were up near 100 over much of France and Spain and parts of Italy, and even in Britain, temperatures were getting up into the low 90s. Now here's tomorrow at noon. You can see that area is in eastern France. It's still pretty hot, and down into Italy and in parts of Germany, but it is beginning to cool off everywhere else as the troughing takes over, so that by the time we get to Saturday, big changes in Saturday. The noontime temperatures are basically in the 60s to around 70, and some places are just in the low 60s, and by the time we get to the evening hours, 6 o'clock in the evening, you've got 50s in a lot of places, and also 50s up in England. So this heat wave very much short-lived with regards to what's going on in Europe. And from the standpoint of the surface map, we do have some rain coming in as you have a storm that's up northwest of Ireland with an arm, a front that kind of rips up and around, and occlusion that rips through, and then low pressure on the southern end of that moves eastward into Italy with some rain and thunderstorms. I'm likely to think that there's going to be some thunderstorms with this as they they change air masses, and just looking at what the radar's supposed to look like, you do have some welcome relief and rains coming in. That's not a half bad little low that moves up into the northern Mediterranean and across Italy as we go through the weekend and into next week. And then another low, a 991-ish low approaching the southwest shores of England and Wales. So you've got activity coming on. This is a quick shot of heat for Europe and for that part of Europe, and then it's going to be done. So that's good news as far as that is concerned. So back we go. All right. Oh, Scott Briller, thanks a lot, you guys. You're being really generous this month. I really appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Okay, so time to say goodbye. Scott Briller is the chairman. He's got his hand on all the stats, and I truly appreciate what you do, Scott, with the numbers. It's one less thing for me to do when it comes to the Climo stuff, because I'm so wrapped up with everything else. You can get completely overwhelmed with all the weather information. So thanks you guys. All of you are a great help with providing information, and I really appreciate it greatly. Okay, let's wrap it up for tonight. Thanks for being here. We are going to make it 5 in a row tomorrow, so we'll finish up the week, and then maybe we'll take a break over the weekend. We shall see. Weather in 5 got up late today, so I didn't do it until early this afternoon. I'm having some issues with my laptop at home. It's old, and I just ordered a new one, which I'm getting tomorrow. So that'll help things out. So we'll get weather in 5 tomorrow. Probably have it up at the regular time, which is early in the day, before 9 a.m. And we'll be back with our live stream tomorrow night. All right, folks, have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on the Joe Chaffee YouTube